This is the Mason City Toros podcast. I am Joe Malone, and with me, the head coach of the Mason City Toros, Nick Bruneteau. Nick, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
So the schedule for the Mason City Toros' second season came out in the middle of this past week, and it is, it's a tale of two halves. The first half of the schedule, very road-heavy for the Toros. The second half of the schedule, very home-heavy for the Toros. The season begins on the road with road trips to face the Minnesota Loons, middle of September, and then New Ulm at the end of September, beginning of October. Your thought on the balance of the schedule and the way your opponents are laid out?
Yeah, I'm okay with the schedule. I know there's a pretty big discrepancy between home games and road games, but I'd prefer it to be the road games early. I think that's always a little bit easier for our players, and those games at the end of the year always seem to matter a little bit more as the standings kind of wind down. So I think having those games at home late in the season is going to be, a nice bonus for our fans and for our players to play in front of our, the crowd when more of those games should matter and should dictate the standings. And then obviously you get some non-conference games against Rochester, and I'm sure other teams maybe would look at that differently, but that's exactly who we wanted for our non-conference. Obviously, they won the league last year, and it's always a really good benchmark, and I think that helped us last year, getting a mid-season test or an early season test against a team that will be at the Fraser Cup, and you'll have to go through. So overall, I'm pretty pleased with the schedule.
Yeah, now 16 of the first 20 games are on the road, included in that 2 trips to Granite City. That's right. You're going twice to Granite City before they come to visit us here in Mason City. And then all of the team's final 10 games of the year and 13 out of the last 14 are set to be played at the Mason City Arena. And you talked about Rochester for being the one out-of-conference opponent, and you talked about it being a good measuring stick. I mean, it doesn't get much better than Rochester based on last season.
No, they're an excellent team. They're very well coached, and they're good at recruiting. So I view them, us and Granite City, and you throw Wilmer in there last year as, especially geographically in the area of, probably the 4 dominant teams. And it's funny because we're also in the same recruiting battle. So, there's obviously a reason why those teams have success. We're all also, trying to find the exact same players and similar styles. So I'm excited about that one. I think it'll be good for our guys, and I think playing so many road games early on should be an advantage for us because we should be returning a little bit more than last season.
Okay, now this, talking about recruiting and whatnot, leads into my next question. If you had to put a percentage on it, how much of your roster for the 22-23 season is set right now?
So that's a super tricky question. So we could return 19 players out of the 25. Now, I would expect that number to be cut in half. Obviously, you have the new powers, Olvey, Stevens, Kochanowski, Howell, guys that either tendered or were drafted with other teams. And then you look at some of the guys that weren't tendered or drafted, and they're getting some really good opportunities and looks from other NA teams. So realistically, we would expect somewhere in that 10 range, but it's tough to know until those main camps happen and you kind of get a little bit better feel. But we're hopeful that I'm sure most coaches want to bring their whole team back. I'm actually hoping that most of our guys make the North American League team because I think they worked hard, deserve it, and you want to see these kids move on their careers and advance to the next levels as well. So we're prepared for either way. I thought we did a good job with our tenders and our draft picks, to kind of help bolster that. And then obviously there's, free agents that we're looking at right now as well to try to bring in and, help solidify the next thing. We do have one guy that, I do think, should be discussed about. He's committed to come back here next season no matter what, and he's a guy that, was really knocking on the North American League doors, but just shows his commitment to the city. And he was one of our best players last year, and that's Colin Hogan. So I think that's something for the fans to get excited about. He was the best penalty killer in the league last year, and we think he's going to take even bigger strides this year. But we're really excited about him confirming and letting us know that, hey, this is where I want to be.
Excellent news. Now, are there any spots that you know for certain you need to bring in new skaters to? Like, do you wake up in the middle of the night and go, "Oh my gosh, we don't have any goalies. I gotta figure that out."
Well, that's a tough one. Definitely goaltending, because we lost Owen Carlson for sure, and then Eric Chafe is a guy that, if he came back, he'd be a monster for us. But the Bulls drafted him, and we're hoping he makes the Bulls. So he's kind of in that spot where, the North American League is a tough league to crack, and we think he's right kind of in that conversation. But either way, we definitely need one goalie, and we tried to address that, in the off season with tenders. We didn't draft a goalie, but we tendered a couple. We have one from Shattuck St. Mary's, my old high school. So I know those coaches extremely well. Actually went to school with most of them who are there now. So we got a goalie from there. He's from Las Vegas. He's going to go out east and see, test some of the waters out east. And if not, it sounds like he would come here. And then we also have Damian Van Daniker from St. Paul. So those are two guys that'll be competing and vying for those jobs and those spots on our team as well.
Van Daniker just sounds like a goalie name. Like that, it just had to be.
Right?
Now, last question for you is, what did you learn from your first season as the head coach of the Mason City Toros, and what do you look to bring back, improve on as far as what you control on the bench?
Well, I definitely made a lot of mistakes, that's for sure. I think just understanding the level and understanding the player pool was a big learning curve for me. It'd been, 10-plus years since I, was around junior hockey, whether my brothers or my friends, and just kind of understanding the players. I thought it's always tough walking into a season when you don't know who your players are and you haven't seen them play and you don't know much about them. And whether that's planning structure around the kids or planning, the mental side of things around them as well. Now going into year two, I feel like myself and Marquise, we know the players, we know the personalities, and that just helps us add more. It's now we can implement more structure, we can implement more things, just for one, knowing our players' tendencies, but two, knowing their personalities. So that's something I'm excited for. I think we can do a lot more this year, and we're planning on adding a little bit more structure and just trying to turn it up a little bit this next season. And I think we're in a good spot. Our goal has never changed. It's to win the Fraser Cup, and that's what we're looking forward to this year.
Excellent. And the season again starts the middle of September against the Minnesota Loons on the road. First home opener, will be on Friday, October 7th against the Rochester Grizzlies. What a great game that is going to be to open up the home schedule at the Mason City Arena. Toros head coach Nick Bruneteau, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Joe. I always appreciate it.